folks, welcome back to Crows Before Bros. My name is Randy. I run this channel with my pal Lauren so we can talk about the books that we're reading, whether we love them, hate them, see how we're feeling. So let's go. February had a bit more reading for me than January did. I'm in something of like an unhinged character phase right now. So I finished A Conjuring of Light, which I adored. I also read Ugly Love, which I hated. You can check out our Colleen Hoover mega episode by clicking on the little thingy up here. I'm also about halfway through Wild and Wicked Things, which I started because the premise was really intriguing to me. The book is described as kind of a Great Gatsby retelling meets Sapphic Witches, but at about the halfway point right now, and it's just like pretty slow. And then the other two books I read this month are the books we're going to be talking about today. So today I'm going to be talking about Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber, and also the sequel to this, The Ballad of Never After. I'm gonna make a spoiler section in the bar down below, so you can skip ahead if you're excited to read these. I'm gonna contain all of my spoilery bits in that section later. So this series has been on my TBR pretty much since the day they dropped. I hadn't even read Caraval at that point, and I was just kind of intrigued by the premise. Stephanie Garber describes that you don't have to read Caraval to read this series. However, seeing as Once Upon a Broken Heart is a direct sequel to the Caraval series and has some tie over with characters in the magic system, I would recommend reading the Caraval trilogy first. Once Upon a Broken Heart and Ballad of Never After are the first two books in a trilogy. A Curse for True Love, I think, comes out later this year. Again, this series does feel like a really direct sequel. The happenings of the beginning of this book are directly referenced at the end of finale, and we have a character crossover of Jax, who is a secondary character in Legendary and Finale, and one of the main characters in this series. In Caraval, we follow the Dragna sisters, Scarlet and Donatella. However, in this series, we get a new main character of Evangeline Fox. Once follows Evangeline as she makes a deal with the Prince of Hearts, Jax. She's trying to stop a wedding between who she believes is her true love and her stepsister. She believes that Luke, this man that she loves, has been cursed and bewitched to fall for her stepsister. Jax agrees to stop the wedding in return for 3 kisses, which he can dictate who and when Evangeline has to give these kisses. Jax, who is fully chaotic, neutral, self-serving, never know whose side he's on, turns this whole wedding party to stone to stop the wedding. Evangeline gets there and chooses to trade places with the wedding party, turning herself into stone and setting the rest of them free. She remains that way for about 6 weeks until people find a way to cure her. And because of this, she becomes a local legend. Because of her newfound fame, Scarlet and Donatella ask her to represent their kingdom by going to essentially the Bachelor for the Northern Kingdom's prince. This is where Evangeline's story really takes off. We meet Prince Apollo, whose best friend is, you guessed it, Jax. Jax cashes in on one of the owed kisses fairly quickly and asks Evangeline to kiss Apollo. This sets a number of things in motion for all 3 of these characters. These books take a look at love and ask us questions like, what would we do for love? Are we doing things out of love or because we just want to experience love for ourselves? There's a quote in this book that reads, "She told herself she was acting out of love, but she wasn't really. She wasn't making loving choices. She's making compromising choices because she wanted love. He wasn't her weakness, love was. Not even just love, but the idea of it." A note that this is a young adult fantasy novel, and it does at times really feel like it could fall at the younger end, almost middle grade edge of young adult, except for there's a few scenes that definitely push it into the more young adult realm. So if you're wanting a really deep and confrontational fantasy series, this probably is not it. But it is a lot of fun. The book really feels like a fairy tale being written in front of you, and you get to see all the melodrama along the way. This book is also ripe with pretty much every young adult literary trope and cliche that you could find. We got dead parents, an evil stepmom, evil stepsister, morally gray love interest, a love triangle, random vampires, she's the chosen one, there's huge parties and balls and masquerade. It's fairy tale retelling, prophecy subplot, grumpy sunshine dynamics, lots of betrayal, and probably more that I can't even think about right now. Some things that I really enjoyed about this series are Jax. Jax, 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 Jax. Seriously, folks, I am in such a deep, unhinged character mood, and I cannot seem to get myself out of it. Give me the most unhinged, murder-happy, self-serving characters, and that's what I want to read right now. Like I said before, Jax is the character who ties the Once trilogy to the Caraval trilogy. I was obsessed with him in Caraval. He's probably the reason I finished the series, and I'm obsessed with him still. I adore him so much, and he is just so awful most of the time. You never know really at any point throughout the books if he's actually on Evangeline's side or if he's taking advantage of her or if those two things line up at all. But just like Evangeline, I found myself coming back for more Jax. So Jax is not a human entity, he is an immortal fate in this world. Fates are kind of immortal beings who all have different magical powers and kind of curses tied to them. So he's the fate of broken hearts. It includes a curse that will kill any woman he kisses unless she is his true love. He is so chaotic, so self-serving, so horrible, and I love him so much. I really hate myself for not hating him. I know I should, and I just can't bring myself to. The series really digs into the absolute angst of Jax and Evangeline really being scared to act on any feelings because Jax has previously met his one true love, so there's the assumption that it then can't also be Evangeline, and therefore if they ever act on any other feelings, she's gonna die. I have another quote here. Evangeline had once heard a tale of a pair of doomed stars drawn across the skies towards each other's brightness, even though they knew if they drew too close, their desire would end in a fiery explosion. This was how Jax looked at her now, as if neither of them would survive if they drew any closer. I love the way that this book felt really magical and whimsical along the way. Stephanie Garber really marketed this as a book that would feel like a fairy tale, and it does. Some things I didn't love as much about the series include that the writing does feel really very juvenile. And I get that it's young adult, and I get that there's different writing styles, but I feel at times like we're just kind of running in circles or that the plot is just kind of happening to us. A complaint that I had with Caraval also is that it seems like Stephanie Garber maybe should have been a fashion designer. I'm never against, in a fantasy novel, the idea of getting dressed up for a ball and having these beautiful garments so described that it feels like I could pick it up. It is so real to me. However, it feels like maybe like a quarter of this book is Stephanie Garber just like describing outfit changes. Here's an example. The dress was actually dreamy. It had the type of long slit sleeves she's always thought of as romantic, sheer and a very soft shade of pink. The bodice was a little deeper in color and covered in an intricate series of braided rose gold cords that went all the way down to the hips, where layers of impossibly thin fabric dusted with hints of sparkles flowed out to form the skirt. She does a wonderful job. I feel like I could hold this garment in my hands. But I think like one or two of these descriptions in a book is plenty. Instead, we get that feeling of 15 outfit changes in 3 days. It feels like when I go shopping and I buy a bunch of clothes and then I force my husband to sit through a funny little fashion show.
Hi love, I'm back from shopping. Do you want to see what I got? Yeah, sure. This is the first shirt. I don't know where I'm gonna wear it exactly because it's a little low cut for work and I don't really go anywhere else, but I bought it anyways because it was on sale.
Very nice.
I bought this shirt in blue and in white. I also got this pink sweatshirt.
I like to wear pink.
Yeah, I know I don't, but what if I'm going to like an anti-bullying day or a Women's Day event and I need something that's pink? Don't get mad at me for this one. This is a beige sweater. I love it. I know you said I don't need any more beige sweaters because I own like 7, but hear me out.
Yep.
It's soft.
Wow.
Okay, this one is a wee bit impractical. But you know, what if I'm going to like a winter formal or something really fancy where I have to be like really chic, you know? This green velvet is dripping money.
Have you ever had a dream that you
Another complaint I have is that Evangeline as a main character is direly naive. She is just so hopelessly romantic to a fault, and it often at times feels like the story is just happening to her and that she's not actually engaging with it at all. I forgive Stephanie Garber for all of these things that I don't like though because of Jax. I'm absolute trash for him. It's a problem. I've loved reading about him, and when he would be gone away or the chapter wouldn't be focused on him, I would find myself zooming through trying to get back to where he comes back. So I'm gonna do spoilers now, so if you are interested in reading this book and you haven't yet, maybe jump ahead to the next section where I do my ratings. I'm not gonna break down the whole plot in the spoiler section because there are 2 books, but there are just a couple things I really wanted to talk about. Namely, the scene where Jax is almost turned into a vampire. Look y'all, when vampires were suddenly introduced into this book 75% of the way through, I had a real moment where it's like, do I want to keep reading this? Where did this come from? It feels so out of the blue. At this point, I'm 4 books deep into this world, and vampires has maybe been fleetingly mentioned, but I don't remember it at all. It doesn't seem like a critical part of this world. And again, I forgive Stephanie Garber for this, for the scene where Evangeline is trying to keep Jax from permanently turning into a vampire, so she has to stop him from biting a human before the sun rises. But here is why. All is forgiven. His mouth curved wider as his hands moved from her throat to her shoulders and slowly slid the cape away, leaving more of her skin exposed. You should go back to the other side of the gate. Her voice was hoarse. You're the one who said I needed a distraction. His fingers drifted lower, trailing down her chest to the sensitive stretch of skin right above the lacy line of her corset. Isn't this better than talking? Her breathing hitched. I don't think this is a good idea. That's what makes it interesting. He's terrible, and he's so hot. The fact that this is immediately after he dares her to stab him with a dagger is so prime. This is what I want from fantasy books always. Also, when he's healing Evangeline in Ballad and he like rips off her clothes and she was like, is this necessary? And he's like, no, but everybody deserves to have their clothes ripped off at least once. Oh, these scenes are why I backpedal a bit on the idea of calling this a middle grade book. There are definitely scenes that are like a little racier, too racy for like a 10-year-old, but the writing style is still very young. The cliffhanger in Ballad, oh my gosh, not Jax using his one chance to go back in time and get with his one true love and throwing it away to save Evangeline. Oh, damning himself to never be with Donatella, only for Apollo to come back and ruin everything anyways. Honestly, Apollo's whole plotline is a bit of a mess. He is cursed at the beginning to, you know, be in love with Evangeline from the one kiss, and then he's cursed to try and kill her, and he's like kind of dead for a while, and I feel like I don't really know who Apollo is because he's just been this like vessel of curses for 2 whole books, but I'm very excited to see where this kind of new story of him being so terrible and manipulative goes. The one time he makes any one decision for himself in this whole series, he's just like a total jerk about it and rips Evangeline's memories away. It feels a little bit like in Ballad we've forgotten that one kiss is owed to Jax, because the first 2 are used in Once Upon a Broken Heart and then it's kind of left untouched for all of Ballad. I would be willing to bet that Jax is going to use that final kiss on himself and that's going to bring back Evangeline's memories? Question mark? That's my prediction. All right, if you left for spoilers, welcome back. Now let's get into rating. So I rated Once Upon a Broken Heart a 3.5 and I gave Ballad a 4. They were such fun reads and I ate them up really, really fast. Once I read in a day, and Ballad I read in 2. They're really good for getting out of a slump type of books. I had just finished A Conjuring of Light and Ugly Love, and A Conjuring of Light I love, but it was big and heavy and heartbreaking at times, and Ugly Love I didn't enjoy, so this felt like a good middle ground to reach. While we do occasionally get the question of, am I doing this because I love somebody else, or am I doing this because I want other people to love me? For the most part, there's not really any hard-hitting questions in this book, or you're not faced with anything difficult. Instead, it fits really well as a guilty pleasure read for the morally gray character. I also don't often link a song to my solo videos, but I would be remiss to not mention Taylor Swift's Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince. Literally written for these 2. Oh, it's so good. Coming up next for my reading, I'm gonna finish Wild and Wicked Things, hopefully today or tomorrow, and then I'm gonna read If We Were Villains. I'm doing a reread of one of my favorites, and I'm hoping to start Priory of the Orange Tree soon. If you guys have any recommendations for fantasy books with absolutely unhinged characters, please let me know. I've almost just gone back to rereading Cruel Prince because I know that it's gonna satisfy, but I have so many other books on my TBR that I didn't want to focus on rereading one that I've read so recently. As always, like, comment, subscribe. We love hearing from you guys, and we do take your guys' book recommendations to heart. They pretty much always get added to either mine or Lauren's TBR, depending on who it seems like it would fit best. We love you guys, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye!